Undocumented migrant sent a letter threatening to kill the president, promising to self-deport after the assassination. CNN reporting shows that investigators believe the migrant was set up. It was a victim of a setup. What is the administration going to do now?
Well, I want to clarify what you mean, so we're talking about the same thing. Are you saying this immigrant was here illegally?
Yes, but I am, and that's why I said that. I clarified that.
You said undocumented, and I wasn't clear what that means.
That's White House Deputy Chief of Staff Stephen Miller correcting CNN's Pamela Brown for twisting the facts and using misleading terms to shield illegal immigration. While she tried to frame the suspect as just another undocumented migrant, Miller called it for what it is, an illegal alien making threats on U.S. soil. It was a live dismantling of the left's language game, where soft terminology gets used to turn law-breaking into victimhood. Miller's calm but sharp pushback exposed how the media constantly cloaks legal debates in emotional appeals to distract from the real issue, border security.
And this is an undocumented immigrant. I do want to note that, but this was someone who came forward, was a victim of a crime, and now law enforcement believes he was set up. Go ahead.
I'm assuming they have a fake ID. I'm assuming they have a fake social security number.
That's neither here nor there. That's getting away from the question, Stephen. I want this to be, and call me naive, a good faith discussion about what's happening right now.
When we use language that's designed to obscure the truth, that's not good faith.
An illegal
alien is an illegal alien. They're not an undocumented migrant.
Okay, that's fine. That's another discussion for another date.
I don't know the details of the assassination threat. All I can say, based on what you're telling me, is there's an illegal alien in our country who's making menacing threats. Regardless of the facts or circumstances, we don't want him here. We're going to get to the bottom of it, and I would gladly come back on when I have more information to share with you.
They were set up, just to be clear. But quickly, where is the White House on habeas corpus?
The illegal alien was treated unfairly. Yes, I'm sure the illegal alien was treated very unfairly.
Where is...
You know, this is what happens when someone finally calls out the narrative. Brown frames the individual as a harmless, undocumented migrant, like we're talking about someone picking apples, not someone here illegally. But when Miller pushed back with plain language, suddenly everything felt tense. That's the problem with the left's approach. They use sanitized terms to blur the line between legal and illegal until someone exposes the truth. And when Miller broke it down, Brown couldn't handle it. Instead of having a real discussion, she defaulted to emotional appeals and tried to steer the conversation back to activist judges protecting those same illegals.
Do you think a judge should just rubber stamp what your White House does? If not, what checks and balances do you think should be in place for this White House?
It is not the job of a district court judge to perform an individual green light or red light on every single policy that the president takes as the head of the executive branch. Just think about the premise baked into your question, respectfully, Pam. You're saying that when the American people elect a president of the United States of America,
I'm not saying
well, it's the implication, who is the sole head of the executive branch. Well, let me finish. I will answer the question happily. But look, when you have these kinds of lazy assumptions built into questions, it makes it hard to have a constructive dialogue.
What is a lazy assumption? I said you all had to win.
You said no. You said, is it my expectation?
I'm speaking
because now you're putting... You said, is it my expectation? It's not just you. It's the whole media. In other words, when you hear a sentence like...
It is a completely fair question. You say judges who rule against the White House.
And I will gladly answer it. When you say, do we think district court judges should rubber stamp each action? There is a premise that is built into that is absurd. The president is the sole head of the executive branch. He's the only officer in the entire government that's elected by the entire American people. Democracy cannot function. In fact, democracy does not exist at all if each action the president takes, foreign policy, diplomatic, military, national security, has to be individually approved by 700 district court judges. That's democracy. So if there's 15 communist crazy judges on the court, that each of them as a team working together can block and freeze each and every executive action.
You know, Miller absolutely nailed it. CNN tried to act like Trump's criticism of activist judges was some baseless conspiracy, but he laid out the facts with surgical precision. These judges aren't neutral. They're partisan operators undermining executive authority at every turn. Miller calmly pointed out that Article 2 of the Constitution gives immigration enforcement power to the executive branch, and that Article 3 courts were never meant to interfere in individual deportation cases. Congress even created a separate system, immigration courts, because they explicitly didn't want Article 3 judges micromanaging deportations. Brown tried to twist it into a narrative about checks and balances, but Miller broke it down. If you need permission from 700 unelected judges before enforcing immigration law, then you no longer have a functioning presidency. That's not checks and balances. That's judicial sabotage. Every time Trump tried to follow the law, activist judges tied his hands, all while pretending to defend the Constitution they were actively subverting. And when Miller hit her with Supreme Court precedent, cases where even the highest court sided with Trump, Brown had nothing. She fumbled, hedged, then quietly admitted he was right. Because deep down, she knew she couldn't spin her way out of a reality Miller understood far better than anyone else on that stage. Watching her unravel on live TV wasn't just entertaining, it was revealing. It showed how fragile the media's arguments are when they're confronted by someone who actually knows what the Constitution says and refuses to back down.
A district court judge has no authority in this space whatsoever, not even a little bit. Not even a small amount, let alone it is true. So answer me this, why did Congress create Article 2 immigration courts? Because they didn't want Article 3 courts, and in fact prohibited Article 3 courts from adjudicating individual cases. Okay. Is it really your belief, as if it is, that's breathtaking to me, that when we're deporting an illegal alien, we have to get permission from an Article 3 district court judge?
Okay.
Like a trial judge? Is that your view?
It's how the law works and the Constitution
works.
No,
the law says explicitly that individual immigration cases fall underneath the Attorney General of the United States under Article 2. And the Article 3 courts have been stripped of jurisdiction wholly in this area.
There is a law, it's a temporary protected status that says it's not subjected to judicial review, but that does not apply to all immigration issues. It's one law from Congress.
I'm glad that you're conceding that TPS rulings are unlawful. But the entire structure of the
Supreme Court weighed in on that. I am saying yes. The Supreme Court said the Trump administration was right on that issue.
One of many
twice
examples.
In the last
we are
few
always
weeks.
Right.
I mean, this is the core of the issue. Immigration enforcement is a job for the executive branch, and yet these activist judges have been acting like they're the ones running the country. Miller made it crystal clear. Article 2 gives the president and the attorney general authority over immigration, not district court judges. These judges were never supposed to interfere in individual deportation cases, and Congress created a separate immigration court system for that very reason. Yet somehow, we've arrived at a point where liberal judges think they get to micromanage every executive decision, completely undermining the democratic process. And what's worse is that networks like CNN sit there acting shocked when someone like Miller spells it out. Brown tried throwing every curveball she could, legal jargon, emotional framing, political insinuations, but none of it landed. Because Miller had the facts, the law, and Supreme Court precedent all on his side. He wasn't just debating, he was exposing how the left's so-called resistance strategy is built entirely on bypassing voters and abusing the judiciary. In the end, it was Brown who backed down. After all the finger-pointing and legal nitpicking, even she had to concede that the Trump administration was right. On TPS, on immigration courts, on constitutional authority. And that's the moment CNN's entire setup collapsed. What was supposed to be a media ambush turned into a masterclass in constitutional law, because when you bring on someone who knows the rules of the game and refuses to play by their manipulated framing, you lose. Every time. But let me know what you think. Should the president be able to enforce immigration laws without activist judges stepping in to block him at every turn? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe. See you next time.